welcome, Brittany, back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, what's new with the Epilepsy Foundation? I know you've been on the road quite a bit, working with New Mexico, but I'm curious, just kind of catch me up. As Marcus said on the last podcast, it's your guys' month, so I'm kind of curious to hear how the nonprofit's going. I didn't realize this until you mentioned it, that you're kind of like the sole operator for the nonprofit. I kind of thought like, oh, you probably have like a staff and a bunch of people working at the organization. But in reality, like you're kind of the sole person and everyone else is volunteering to help put things together for the most part, right?
Yeah, well, our structure for Epilepsy Foundation Arizona and New Mexico is my territory. Is we're a chapter of the national, office, Epilepsy Foundation of America. And I do have a support team, but I'm the only one who physically lives in Arizona.
Okay.
So I'm the executive director for Arizona and New Mexico. And then I have an operations manager who doesn't work for me. She works with me, who helps with like managing our financials, helping book venues, a lot of the logistical kind of things, paying bills, stuff like that.
Okay.
And then I have an engagement coordinator who also works with me, and she helps with like social media, designing things in Canva. So I'm not solo, but I'm solo in Arizona. And so those two women, my colleagues, they're assigned to another executive director or two and kind of help all of us manage our events and what we have going on. But it is a lot. Like someday, Arizona, we're rapidly growing, and
Right.
we are a couple years away from becoming our own affiliate. And at that point, we definitely will be hiring more staff. I would love that. But we are busy. And as you mentioned, we've been wrapping up our busiest time of year. So November is Epilepsy Awareness Month. And so last night, we actually had our last sponsored event of 2025. This weekend, we're heading to the ASU game for Epilepsy Awareness Night, but that'll just be a fun, like, relaxed day.
Yeah.
But it's been a great month. We've had a really successful Epilepsy. It's our largest fundraiser gala event of the year. I'm happy to share we raised over $173,000,
Okay.
which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
And that money funds our camps that we do. So we do camps for children, teens, and families with epilepsy every summer and fall. And so admittedly, my favorite part of my job, but being able to do that for them, to be able to raise the money so they can go, it's not, they don't have to pay for it. We provide a
Right.
regular fun camp experience with an epilepsy team up there so they're safe medically, is awesome. So a lot of the efforts for the epilepsy are for that. You asked me about what else we've been up to. Last night we had a dinner. It's called the Amon's Horn Society. You and I aren't medical doctors, but people that are neurologists, they get it. But Amon's Horn is actually like a part of the anatomy of your brain.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like a catchy name for this doctor's dinner that we do. But it's a way to bring together all of the different epilepsy centers. All these medical providers, in Phoenix especially, we're so lucky. We have all these level 4, which is the highest level of prestige for an epilepsy center. We have Banner, Barrow Neurological Institute, Mayo Clinic, Phoenix Children's, just in Phoenix,
Right.
not including Tucson, Banner at U of A. So Arizona's lucky in the fact that we have all these premier centers, and a lot of the times they don't talk with each other as often as they should. And so by hosting these dinners, the Epilepsy Foundation acts as a vehicle to unite the epilepsy community, allow them to share ideas. And so last night, Banner University Medical Center, they presented on surgical options in epilepsy, and it was a really lively discussion, hearing even a little feisty, hearing from the different epileptologists and neurosurgeons and sharing their opinions. It's very informative for me. I love
Right.
going and learning, but it's also a great way. Industry, pharmaceutical companies are there. They sponsor it for us. So yeah, it's been a busy month with the tea, different events we've had for epilepsy awareness. You mentioned New Mexico. We had a walk there, which was fantastic. We also had an Amon's Horn Society dinner there. So while I'm really tired, it's one of my most fulfilling months of the year because we get to do so much for the community.
And what, like, when you bring these, because I guess that's something that a lot of industries have, where you think that a lot of these clinics and hospitals and doctors would, they're all kind of in the same field or industry. They would be talking to each other a lot, but in reality, it's just not necessarily the case, it sounds like.
I don't think as much as they should. Now, I can't speak to every epilepsy center. On our board of directors, we have representation from Banner, Barrow Phoenix Children's and hearing from these doctors, that's something that we always need to do better about. Last night, I really liked Dr. Sue Herman from Barrow Neurological Institute. She basically said, like, we should be operating as a community, and all of these centers have their areas of strength. And so, like, if one center, maybe their specialty is laser surgery, laser ablation surgery, well, then if that's what they're known for, then we should be sending patients there. And then maybe the other center is more known for neuromodulation, which is another procedure. And so, just actively working together. And then something else too, on a more like normal person level, not medical, is just helping families who have kids transitioning to the adult world. You know, you're leaving Phoenix Children's. Who should I see for my adult neurologist? It's nice if we have more of a smoother transition. And so that's something we're constantly working on too. So a lot of them know each other, but I think for them to be in a room, having a discussion together, it doesn't happen as often as it should. And so that's where Epilepsy Foundation wants to help with that.
Yeah.
And it's a good time. We had a good time.
Yeah.
So.
What's some of the lively discussions they're having in these meetings?
Yeah. So last night, particularly, we had Banner University presenting on minimally invasive options in surgeries for epilepsy. And as a parent of a child with epilepsy, you know, thinking about brain surgery, I mean, I think you'd feel the same. It sounds like really heavy and scary.
Yeah.
But there are options that actually are a lot less invasive as we think. And so Dr. Chung was sharing that. Dr. Baina, he's their neurosurgeon. He shared some great case studies. And it was all with respect, but just some of the opinions of the different epileptologists vary slightly. So just kind of hearing their differences in opinions, which were all very respected amongst each other and maybe even a little razzing each other, kind of made me laugh. But it was good. It was good. And it's nice to see that we have so many experts in Phoenix. So.
Yeah. Is Phoenix always been a hub for like the medical field or epilepsy in general? I don't know if it's just epilepsy that we have a lot of doctors for, or is it just it's growing and now it's kind of taking on that?
I mean, I can't like cite statistics, but Phoenix is one of the largest cities in the country.
That's true.
So, you know, just in that fact, it attracts a lot of businesses. You know, we have Mayo Clinic, which is really renowned for all areas of medicine. And so I think we've just always done well. Phoenix Children's, I mean, they're top in the Southwest. I mean, there's people that travel to Phoenix Children's for care. Even some of my family's in New Mexico. If they're not at University of New Mexico, which is also a level 4 epilepsy center, a lot of times they come here for care. So I think for a long time now, we've had great services. You know, Barrow Neurological Institute, it's known around the world. Banner University, and I may be wrong, but I believe they've been a level 4 epilepsy center for about 10 years now. So we have a lot of choices, which is a good thing, you know, so.
Yeah, you definitely want to be in an area if you have any medical concerns where there's something nearby.
Yeah.
You know, if you're remote, it's going to be problematic if there's, well, especially if there's emergencies, but just in general, if you have to check up. You know, you're working in New Mexico as well. What's the circumstances down there? Do they have nearly the same resources? I would assume they're quite a bit smaller as far as, well, just population size who lives there, but also resources because, is that correct?
You're right. So just for comparison, according to the CDC, Arizona has 77,000-ish people with epilepsy. That's just the person, and think about their families. It affects them too.
Right.
Well, New Mexico has 16,000-ish. Now, those numbers are increasing, but that's a huge difference.
Totally.
New Mexico is a lot more rural. University of Mexico is a level 4 epilepsy center. They have fantastic doctors there, but that's the only level 4 center. Now, not to say that Santa Fe, Las Cruces, there's some great community neurologists, but you know, at a level 4 epilepsy center, they often have the latest technologies, an advanced neurosurgery department. You know, there's just a lot more there. And so people in New Mexico will have to drive, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours to see their doctor. There just aren't as much resources. And so we're actively trying to work on that and change that. Epilepsy Foundation, to be honest, we haven't had a real strong presence there until when they hired me. You know, that was one of my initiatives my boss gave me, is like, we got to expand there.
Sure.
And so, you know, lots of room to grow, and definitely not tooting my own horn, but I'm like, they deserve support too. So we had just had our second walk. It's growing every year. We've done an 2 Amen's Horns dinners now, which were well attended. And then we're doing an epilepsy education conference in January, which I'm really
Oh,
excited
cool.
about for the community. So I think it's just going to get better and better. But there, Phoenix and Albuquerque, the main, hub in New Mexico for care. While there's some great providers there, it's just so different because Arizona just has so
Sure.
much more. So I want the families in New Mexico to have as much support as they can too.
Right. Yeah. No, that'd be tough if you're more remote and you don't have as many resources. And I can imagine trying to travel to wherever you're supposed to go to get to that, to get to like a hospital or to a specialist or whatever it may be. Because I guess some stuff they could, some resources and training could be, remote or online or things like that. But I mean, at some point, you probably have to see a specialist in person or
You
have
do.
to do some of those things.
Yeah, and it depends on their insurance. I mean, there's a lot of factors. And people with epilepsy, some adults can't drive. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
like practical barriers too, not just like getting your medicine or seeing a doctor. It's real life stuff
Yeah.
too.
How much of, because you've been fully immersed not only as, in the nonprofit but also as a parent. How does like telehealth and things like that, being able to get on a call or like a Zoom or something like that. I've only done telehealth a few times, but is that even something that really is feasible? Because I know you mentioned with people with epilepsy that sometimes you can't drive, sometimes it's hard to travel. Is that even like feasible, or is it kind of like, that doesn't really work for a lot of those type of circumstances?
Oh, it's very feasible. In fact, I prefer it.
Okay.
COVID definitely changed that for like all medicine,
Right.
and it really just depends on insurance, but more and more insurance plans, telehealth is here to stay. I do know in my case for my daughter Brooke, we do a lot of our appointments at telehealth. Depending on the doctor, typically they may want to see them at least once a year in person, but I do as many telehealth appointments as possible. It's hard. Not only is it the drive time, having to miss work, things like that. But a lot
Yeah.
of kids and adults who have been through a lot of medical trauma, just going back to the place, even though I love that hospital because they've helped her so much, appointments are stressful. And so being able to
Right.
hop on with her epileptologist, get the appointment done where she's in our home, hands down, I'd choose that every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I didn't think about it from the standpoint of, the individual going through it. Like it might be a traumatic experience going
It
to the
is.
doctor or going to the hospital or just spending a lot of time in those facilities. It's like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I don't want to spend another 3 hours sitting here and waiting and, all those things. So I didn't think about that and isn't epilepsy especially too can be a lot of the symptoms and seizures can be triggered by like mental health and stress and those type of things as well.
Yeah, so epilepsy is a neurological condition.
Yeah.
So, electrical activity in the brain, your brain misfires, and then it causes these physical symptoms. Now, that's my non medical short explanation.
Yeah.
But there's triggers. So, people with epilepsy, it depends on the person, but they have different triggers. Now, the most common triggers are stress, illness, lack of sleep,
Hmm.
forgetting to take your medicine, hormones. Sensitivity to light is actually only 2 to 3% of people are affected by that, but that's one people usually think of.
Right.
But
The
those are
strobe
just a
lights or
handful.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are just a handful of the common triggers. So you're stressed out, you're more prone to have a seizure. I mean, any chronic illness is exacerbated by stress.
Right.
So yes, that can be a huge
Yeah,
trigger.
I always wonder what that reasoning is for the stress one because it's like, I mean, I guess stress is a good thing at times. They always talk about stress being like a like there's good stress and then there's bad stress, but yeah, it seems like stress is the culprit for a lot of
Yeah.
everything. Not just I guess not just
Yeah.
seizures, but
I wonder if it's like stress versus pressure. Like I
mm,
work well under pressure. Like I'm the type of
yeah,
person that's like I have a lot of things to get done, but if I'm under pressure, like I can do it. But like stress sometimes is debilitating for people. And I
right,
have had times, and I don't have a chronic illness where I'm super stressed and it just like stops me. So think about someone who has a really debilitating physical condition. It's exacerbated by stress, and it's just like this vicious cycle. And the reality of having epilepsy is stressful in itself,
right,
you know?
right. Yeah, no,
So,
that makes sense. I wonder too. I always wonder if there's like a way to like not necessarily in a for people with epilepsy. I'm sure they've got other symptoms that are triggers, as you mentioned, that cause seizures. But just in general, like with stress, because I like how you differentiate between pressure and stress. Because with pressure, it's like it's a good thing. Like it's getting me to do my things, and it's like okay, having that little fire under me to keep me going is a good thing. But then, is there a way to like build up a tolerance to stress? Because at some point too, if you push it too far, then like the stress takes over, and then it can cause So I always wonder that is like, can people build a tolerance to stress, or is it just like one of those you got to learn how to read your know yourself and know, okay, hey, I'm kind of tapping out, I'm reaching my end, or I think a lot of people, I just wonder that sometimes, just in a non medical sense of like, can you enhance your ability to take on stress? I guess you can in some ways, right? I don't know.
I think you can. I mean, again, I'm not a psychologist or a mental health professional, so I'm just going to take epilepsy out of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for me, I have a stressful life. I have a child with a life-limiting illness and a crazy job I love and a family, and it can be stressful, but
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can handle when you don't have a choice.
Right.
And so, like, just you see all these parents of these kids with epilepsy, and a lot of them, you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. People say it to me all the time, and to be honest, I don't like that. Oh my gosh, I could never do that.
Right.
I can never do that. And I always say,
Yeah,
yes, you
yeah,
could,
yeah.
because you love your kids. So
Right.
most parents are going to do whatever they have to do, and you just have to adapt and learn. So I definitely think you can be conditioned to handling a lot. Now, whether that's healthy for you
Yeah, yeah.
and how you cope with it, like my
Right.
caffeine and things like that, is another story.
Yeah, no, I think, because you get that from both perspectives. It's like, I guess it depends on how bad like you want it, right? How bad are you willing to, like in your case, you mentioned, if if you love your kids and you're willing to do it for your kids, like that's the motivating factor, then you'll do it, right? And then there are people who argue it's like, well, just like I've had my mom say before, it's like, well, maybe you're addicted to the stress, the routine, like the grind,
Yeah.
and then maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I mean, the one phrase I can't remember where I read it, but it said like, because a lot of people talk about wanting to do what you love or do what you want, whatever, right? And the person was saying, no, I'll do what's required. I'll do, like, if I want this, like there's steps in between that obviously are not very fun, regardless
Yeah.
of what it is. And like if I want that, I'll do what's required to achieve that, which once again, I don't know if that's the correct line of thinking or not,
Well,
but
you like to run, so do I.
yeah.
So, like, a few years ago, I couldn't even run a mile because I was so out of shape. So you follow a plan and you
Right.
train and you're disciplined and you go through the grind and you're tired and you're like, this sucks so bad, but you push through it and then you can run a 10K for all the hard work you did. So
Right.
I think it's good character building.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's easy all the time. And then add in epilepsy, for example. I don't have epilepsy, but I love someone with epilepsy. I mean, just the fact that you have such a serious condition, any of the like regular life stuff that you and I or any of us may take for granted, like it's almost like they don't, because it's so hard to even sometimes do some of those things. So some of the most resilient people I know and that I've met through my job have epilepsy, and I'm
Right.
always amazed at what they have accomplished. So
Yeah. No, I think, no, that's true. Sometimes not to say like the term normal, because that's not really, I don't think there's like a normal versus not normal, but like for those who can do all the things, like go running or go to the store or drive without having to worry or anything like that, I think we do take it for granted
We do.
what we have and what we're allowed to do. And then we almost, I think we sometimes put our own pressure and stress on ourselves around what we believe and understand and
Yeah.
whatever we can do versus, if we were to look at other people's circumstances and go, man, they're not even able to do that, or this.
about perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, perspective, I think, is I guess that's everything, right? Everything comes down to perspective, because you can have, like you said, some stresses in your life where you're like, I'm willing to do it, I'm willing to push forward, and some people have a different perspective on that as well. But yeah, no, I agree. How is the epilepsy party? I'm curious because I know we talk about this a lot off camera, about running nonprofits and fundraising, and that's a grind, obviously, to try and raise money for anything. And what does that equate to? The 170,000 that you raise? I know it goes to the camp you guys support. Could you give us like numbers on what that goes to, like how many kids can go to a camp based off of that? Usually there's kind of like
Yeah, so, like I said, the Epilepsy Foundation, the proceeds, The focus is raising money for camp.
Yeah.
I'm not going to advertise our financials in specifics, if that's okay.
No, yeah.
But, it's taking 70 to 80 kids plus staff,
Right.
100 people, for example, for Camp Candlelight, between volunteers, kids, medical professionals, to a week-long sleepaway camp where we're covering all their lodging, their horseback riding, the food, meals. It's a lot of money that you probably wouldn't think.
Sure.
But, I mean, it's worth it. It's so
Right.
worth it. And then to replicate that in the fall, where we take, 9 to 10 families, it's a little smaller, but these kids have developmental disabilities and epilepsy at Camp Starlight. And to take their families up, again, it's about 50, 60 people. Just think about paying for a week vacation for all of those people. And so it certainly adds up, and it's our pleasure to do it. But that's kind of the pinnacle of our year. We fundraise
Right.
really hard. I'm so excited because we made well and beyond at the T what camp costs. So it's going to enable us to do other things too.
Right.
But we want to get bigger and do more. And so, anytime you work for a nonprofit or run a nonprofit, as you know, I just want to help people. I want to run the programs. I want to be out in the community. I want to do the things, but you need community support to do that. And so fundraising is certainly a skill that I've had to work and still am working on. But we have a really supportive community. So the tea, it's kind of like a gala. It's a little more casual, but it's a nice event we do every year at the Clayton House in Scottsdale. It's a really nice venue. We provide, food, drink. People come and socialize, and really kind of anyone that's the who's who in epilepsy
Yeah.
will be there. Families, also supporters. We do a paddle raise where an auctioneer comes and we literally raise your paddle for certain dollar amounts for camp. It's a little fancy schmancy. We have a silent auction. We also work with Carrie Pena. She's a news personality who now owns her own Inspired Media 360, amazing
Yeah.
media company. And they do documentaries and media that's focused on the good in the world. She's awesome.
Yeah.
And she does these beautiful documentary style interviews for people that we nominate in the community that we admire, patients, medical providers, and professionals. And we feature them in this program. So not only is it a fundraiser, it's a celebration. And
Right.
so, I mean, it's so good. Like, it's so much work. We start in the summer and we plan for this, and it's a huge undertaking. But when you're there and you're looking out in the audience and you're seeing 200 people in tears being moved by the video, for example, for our pediatric nominee who lost her battle to epilepsy, and just that feeling of love and support in the room,
Yeah.
it makes all of that worth it. And so, being able to raise that much money, knowing that we're going to be able to do camps, we're going to be able to do conferences, we're going to be able to do all kinds of things throughout the year, it just sets us up for success so well
Yeah.
for 2026.
Yeah. No, that's got to be a good feeling, having people come and support and be inspired by it. Obviously, they probably have some sort of experience to epilepsy, as you mentioned, but
Some tie. Yeah.
But that I think that's always a nice feeling to see it kind
It
of
is.
play out, especially after the hard work of kind of planning all of it. And probably I think regardless, no matter what type of event you're planning, in the back of your head while you're planning, you're going, okay, are people going to show up, or people going to actually
lot of
support,
pressure.
or are people going to
Yeah.
are they gonna raise the paddle, and
Oh, yeah.
all that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
what would you say now that you good? What's wrong? Is it just
So it's been stopped. The max recording time has been reached.
yeah? So just start the thing over. That's all. Just hit the button again.
That thing?
No, the red button. Restart the camera. Is it
Yeah, sorry, I
blinking?
didn't give specific financials, but I probably
Oh,
shouldn't.
I asked it weird. I was
This
gonna.
one.
Is it still recording, or is
No,
it?
it stopped.
Oh yeah.
I hope you don't mind. I kind of shifted what we can do with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I should have asked it differently.
It's okay.
I was more asking along the lines of like sometimes people will say, oh, like every $10 allows
I
a
can
kid to go to camp or whatever.
tell you
something like
that.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
what I meant to be asking.
I mean, every $2,500 will pay for a kid to go to a week-long
Okay,
camp.
very
So
cool.
putting that in perspective, think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That so it really does allow. I mean, it's always kind of cool to hear how like how many funds equals how many kids going, because then because I think donors know like, wow, okay, I'm going to be
Yeah.
like, I'm helping 3 kids go to camp this year or
Right.
whatever,
Or
right?
donate $5,000 and it'll give all those kids a chance to do horseback riding for an
Yeah.
hour or two at camp. I mean, it quantifies your donation and it makes you feel like you're not just giving money to this endless, like, whatever. You're actually giving something specific that you care about.
Right, exactly, exactly. Real quick, hey Jules, is the recording, is it just still going? Nothing's blinking. It's okay, cool, cool. Yeah, so that actually leads to my next question. I'm kind of curious on because you've been the director for
About 2 years
about
now.
2 years, and so I'm sure lots of learning curve, lots of
Oh, yeah.
figuring things out. What have you seen, especially? And I granted, I understand you're working with some team members in the corporate office that would be considered or something like that,
Yeah, or not, like we're called regional teams, but we're
Okay.
under the national office umbrella.
that's right, national office. So, but with that, you're still kind of, your hands are deep in it, moving it forward and making it happen. So, what have been what's kind of been the biggest things you've learned that like, okay, this really helps move the needle? And because I think a lot of people, there's like a lot of nonprofits out there, right? And some more successful than others, some moving missions forward more than others. But I think there's a lot of small ones out there too that just are trying to, okay, I want to help this group, but I don't really know how to do this. So what have you found as kind of okay, this really helps move the needle? This is what I've learned that helped, bring dollars in or reach out to the community or, help this cause or this person.
Right. So, not to sound cliche, but like remembering the why. Sometimes fundraising and asking for money can be intimidating.
Yeah.
And it is intimidating, to be honest. And so that is a skill that I've had to learn and develop. But our CEO, Bernice Martin Lee, she says to us when, training us in development and things like that, that remember we're worthy. Like Epilepsy Foundation is worthy of such and such companies' support. We
Right.
have our mission is solid. Our vision is so no one faces epilepsy alone. That's our vision statement. So no one faces epilepsy alone. That's worthy, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was a wealthy person or I'm a pharmaceutical company and I have a choice on where to donate my dollars, if I'm talking to someone who is passionate about the mission, is clear in the objectives, and also is confident in expressing that we're worthy of your donation,
Sure.
that having that mindset has helped me be more confident in being in the ask, right?
Right.
And so every time I reach out to a business or a company, I just try to remember like we're worthy of that company's donation. Now we get lots of no's, like
Sure.
everybody gets no's. I will say though that we're really fortunate that industry, so the different pharmaceutical companies that produce epilepsy medications, the medical technology companies that create interventions for epilepsy, they are strong supporters.
Yeah.
They are at all the things we do. They want to sponsor us. Now, we don't want to be only reliant on one industry.
Sure.
So more and more diversifying your areas of support, which would be a suggestion, finding a car dealership or an insurance company. Think about, epilepsy. 1 in 10 people will have a seizure in their lifetime.
Sure.
1 in 26 people have epilepsy. Think, people that have epilepsy have families that own businesses, that work at law firms, that work at big corporations, grocery store chains. A lot of those companies want to make donations, and it's tax write-off for a lot of them. But if they're choosing on where to give their money, having that personal tie makes them more inclined to give to that nonprofit. And so it's
Right.
really, really a lot about building relationships, getting to know your community, being genuine in your efforts. So not just reaching out to such and such family because they own a grocery store chain,
Right.
inviting them to events, caring about their kids, making them see how important it is to have community, and often them will inspire them to donate. So relationships is huge, probably a huge part of it. And then also, I'm lucky in the case, if you could call it lucky, is I have a story. I have a child with epilepsy that I know how personally important it is for people with epilepsy to have a community. Like I really genuinely know that. So
Yeah.
it's easier for me to, when I'm talking to someone, to share that, and they know I'm like actually authentic in
Right.
that. And also just not being afraid to say no, to be told no. People do it all the time. And really just refining what your mission is. You don't need to do a million things, although we are growing a lot. But try, you try events, see what works best. Surveying your community to see what programs and events they find most beneficial. I may think I know what's best for the adults with epilepsy, but I don't think I do. And so this year we created an adults social events committee, and we
Yeah.
have 3 adults with epilepsy serving on it with some of our board members, and they're giving input on the types of things we do for adults with epilepsy. So
Right.
involving your community, there's a phrase, never about us without us. And so, like, if I was planning an event for whatever diagnosis or whatever topic of interest, having the people you serve weigh in is important. So those are some things I've learned. And it's definitely been a big learning curve. If I had big shoes to fill, my predecessor's great. She's still with the foundation. But I will say, epilepsy, we have a really supportive community. Just last night, for example, at that dinner we had 80 people, packed the room. That's awesome for
Yeah.
a doctor dinner, for any chapter. And so I'm lucky that I'm in a state that cares. But, in New Mexico, it's a lot smaller, but just finding people that want to help. People like to volunteer. So, pulling in your community, you don't need to do it all by yourself. You can't do it all by yourself. So learning to, delegate, get people involved, all of those things will help as you're trying to grow your nonprofit's influence in whatever area that you're serving in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are good insights. I think those make sense. So it reminds me of the phrase, the one that talks about if you, what is it? If you want to go fast or go alone, if you want to go further, do it together or something like that.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. So true.
yeah, like I think a lot of people, they question whether or not like people really want to be involved and really want to participate in their idea or their purpose or their mission. But I think a lot of people do. You just have to identify them and make the reach out, right?
Yeah, and I think too, particularly in any sort of diagnosis-specific organization, there's a lot of things you can't control with epilepsy.
Yeah.
I can't unfortunately cure my daughter's epilepsy, but I can get involved and served. And so a lot of times people that are parents or people with epilepsy, getting involved and giving back helps them go through some healing
Right.
on their journey, and it fills their cup, and then they cope with their own life better. And this is, totally me. Long before I worked here and just all my parent advocacy and stuff, like I loved helping people, but in the end, I was helped by it too. And so I think a lot of people that have epilepsy or have loved ones with epilepsy, volunteering for the Epilepsy Foundation helps them in turn handle the journey that they're on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I do think it seems like there's a big uptick in community, people wanting to be a part of a community of some sorts, which I don't know if that was, I may have just been younger and so I didn't realize it, or it could have been COVID that maybe kind of turned off the community switches for a while. And then people over time, it feels like the past few years that people have, the community structures were kind of broken just because everyone got used to being isolated and being alone. But I don't think people were super happy with it. But also at the same time, like you had a little more of your own time. You didn't have to worry about X, Y, Z because of prior commitments. But I think people, people I think need community. They need other people. They need outlets. They need people who've experienced similar circumstances so they can relate and heal and all those different types of things. So it seems like there's of late been a big uptick in people trying to build communities or join communities or just be a part of the community. I feel like that's been, at least the last year or so, a kind of a common theme. And maybe that's just online. I don't know, but even like online community seems to be like a big thing now of people trying to build these, forums, these places where people can connect and be a little more than just Instagram or Facebook where we're posting and hoping people see it, but actually connect with one another. So that makes sense though, that the community aspect would be so huge.
Yeah, I read somewhere, I'm going to mess up the quote, but basically we're the most connected we've ever been in humanity with all our social media, but we're the loneliest we've ever been.
Yeah.
And so that human connection's missing, and so I think COVID made it so much worse. Like, affect my mental health not being able to be out, and I'm a social person, so
Right.
that wasn't my favorite. But another phrase we use at Epilepsy Foundation of America is treat epilepsy with community. So we have all these amazing epileptologists, neurosurgeons. If you have epilepsy, it's the best time ever in humanity to live because there's so many interventions and ways to treat epilepsy that we didn't have in the past.
Right.
However, for a person with epilepsy or a parent, all those medical interventions are super duper important, but often finding people who get your life is the best medicine.
Right. Right. Yeah, because I could imagine there's a lot of people who feel pretty misunderstood
Oh,
in
yeah.
the community.
Very much so.
Just because they have a different life or they have a child who has a completely different circumstance than their 4 kids or whatever, right? So what actually has epilepsy increased over time? Is how people talk about like autism or any real medical concern, they talk about like it's there's been an increase or a rise in that. And then there's the argument that, no, we've just been better at detecting it. Do you feel like that's the case, or do you feel like it's always been around, or do you think there's external things that could be causing more?
Epilepsy has always been around. You
Yeah.
even read in ancient times, that they would document fits or
Yeah.
different ways of describing what we now know as seizures. I'm not a medical doctor, so I couldn't tell you as far as if it's increasing, but I do know that it's super common. It's the 4th most common brain condition, but one of the least talked about.
Right.
So maybe more so now, people are getting diagnosed. And not every seizure is convulsive. Like someone could be having an absent seizure and you don't even know they're seizing because you don't know quite what
Right.
to check for. And so sometimes epilepsy is portrayed one way in the media. And so then people don't realize like someone's having a seizure. And so I think just the more awareness we can spread, the more education it's going to help people. So I couldn't tell you if it's necessarily increasing, but I do know the awareness surrounding it is been really important, and making people realize how common it is actually pretty shocking. Think about that. 1 in 26 people have epilepsy.
Right.
So that usually when we say that and we're teaching in a class of 200 or whatever, we're teaching one of our seizure certifications, most people are like, oh my gosh. Or think of a sports stadium.
Right.
1 in 26 people have epilepsy. That's super common, but people don't talk about it.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. That's a lot of people
It is.
in reality.
Millions of people.
Yeah, and I guess that's true because Marcus Ball, who I just had on the podcast, thank you for making that connection, by the way. He talked about how there's the different types of seizures.
Yeah.
Absence, is that what it's called?
Absence is one type.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's quite a few different
Yes.
types. But yeah, I think if people are unaware and it's not necessarily always a very visual thing, or and as Marcus was pointing out, he talked about how he'd be walking around just hanging with his friends and they think like, oh, what's wrong with you? Like there's something wrong. You look fine. So I guess that's true. That's a good point. When you bring up in ancient times, calling it fits or like different types of things like that. That's yeah, I didn't realize that, but I guess there would be a lot of seizures going undiagnosed or under the radar for a long time if it was just viewed as kind of like a spasm or a fit or just a...
Yeah, and even like in our grandma's generation,
Yeah.
some people thought it was like that person's being hysterical, like some sort of mental health
Really?
issue. So there are non-epileptic seizures, psychogenic non-epileptic seizures or PNES, that are something to do with the emotional well-being, mental health of a person.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's something they can't control. And at the Epilepsy Foundation, we serve all of those communities, but our main focus is on, the neurological seizures. But
Yeah.
it's been around for a lot, hundreds of years. Just, seeing it the way it's been described, but obviously diagnostics are a lot better now,
Right.
so
Yeah. That's crazy that I guess it's true even just a few generations ago, people would have just thought, oh, you're just having like a spasm or a mental fit or whatever. That's
people still think that today
really
around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
In America or just kind of throughout different
I hope
countries?
it's more and more not in America,
Yeah.
but I know throughout the world there's a lot of awareness that's still going on.
Yeah.
Some cultures still believe that there's some sort of religious connotation, they're possessed,
yeah.
or maybe their parents did something and then now they're being punished and their child has epilepsy, which is so sad.
Right.
There's still places where people are institutionalized right away when their child, gets a diagnosis and they put them in institution, which is
Really?
terrible. So there's a lot of epilepsy awareness that is still ongoing throughout the world because it's not how it is in America.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't realize that was still like the case in a lot of cultures.
Yeah, like third world countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they do that when they institutionalize someone for that? Are they doing it because they think that's what's best for them, or is it more of like we don't want to be known and associated with? Because I had a friend who he had dwarfism,
Yeah.
and I think his parent, Asian culture, and he said his parents put him up for adoption. And granted, I don't know if I'm getting this from him, and
Sure.
so I don't know what the parents' reasonings were exactly, or if he knew exactly the reasonings, but I think he assumed it was because it was just like, you don't want to have a child that was an embarrassment or something like that. So is that why they institutionalize in some of those third world countries, or is it one of those like we don't really have a good solution and we don't know how to take care of them?
I'm sure it depends, but probably both of that exists. I mean,
Yeah.
even in the United States, in the 50s, 60s, we institutionalized people.
True.
I mean, there's still, more and more home and community-based services, thank goodness,
Yeah.
are what we do here. However, in Arizona, we still have Randolph House, which was an institution.
Right.
I'm told that when their last resident who passes away, that it's going to close.
Close,
because
right.
they've lived there their entire life.
Yeah.
But it breaks my heart thinking that, 50 years ago, the doctor would have been telling me you need to put her in an
Put her home,
institution.
yeah.
And it's not, I have really personal opinions about that. But
Yeah.
in some countries, they may feel differently. But
Yeah.
thankfully, we have more choices than that now because it was pretty devastating conditions. I don't want to
Yeah.
get depressing, but there's a lot of horrible stuff that happened even in our country.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I bet. I mean, you can't. You would hope that people would be kind and loving to everybody, but the truth, how most people would probably was just a job to take care of people in this home, and it's like how much care do you really have for 15, 20, 30 people who are living in this home, and you just don't know the quality of life they're getting. But yeah, I wonder if, I don't know, I was talking to my grandparents a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and they were telling me about, and my grandpa's like 92, so he was born in the 1930s, which
Yeah.
seems like forever ago, but he's still alive. So but just the world has changed so drastically, I guess, from even then.
Oh yeah.
And when he starts describing some of it, and my grandma was describing her upbringing, and she's like hauling our milk jugs like across town to get them on a truck to go to the cheese factory, the local cheese factory, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are really
You have it
old.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wonder sometimes if and this is probably just an optimistic thinking, I'm like, I would hope that people were doing it because they thought they were giving their child a better life or better care, because their hope was, they thought, oh, I can't take care of them well, or I don't have the means to know how to deal with this. But that probably wasn't the intentions or the thoughts of everybody, but you would hope that was hopefully what the thought process was those institutions, but maybe not.
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah.
But there are people that still do this.
Oh,
there
really?
are homes in Arizona for kids with disabilities. And so I'm not going to be disrespectful in criticizing those parents'
Sure.
decisions. But I will say, in my own experience, having a child who is vulnerable, who is nonverbal, who could not defend herself, also would love to be with her family.
Right.
I could never do that to her, but that's my personal. Now, in regards to epilepsy and the history of epilepsy, I think years ago, like in our grandparents, like that's just what you did. Like your child got this diagnosis. Oh my gosh, like it's so shameful. Well, they got to be institutionalized, and then it's sad,
Yeah.
So I don't mean to be negative, but that's a tender topic for me because I'm a mom of a child who
Yeah.
would have been forced to do that.
Yeah.
It's not too long ago. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate your opinion on it, because I think it's, once again, like over time, people forget about what has changed and the standards of living and how life has improved and the care has improved and the options, and so I think it's important for people to know, like, that was something that happened regularly and frequently, and sometimes in some cases still does happen. Because is that why I was talking to Brandy, and we were talking a little bit about the paying for the pay that was assigned during COVID for at-home care.
Right.
Is that partially? Explain that to me. Is that do you think that's a good thing? Because I know a lot of people, there's some mixed opinions on whether that should stay or whether that should go. Is that a positive thing for the community? Is that a negative thing for the community? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think you're referring to, the Division of Developmental Disabilities.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. So home and community-based services, thankfully that model was adopted in most of this, across the country.
Yeah.
But Arizona has always been known to rate high for families who have loved ones with disabilities for the care that we have. And so instead of institutionalizing people,
Yeah.
years ago, they're like, we need to bring them back into the homes. It's better for their well-being. And so then instead of the state paying for someone to live in an institution, which is very expensive, they
Right.
realized, sadly, it's also cheaper to keep someone in their home, but they do better. They thrive. They, the kids want to
Right.
be at their families. And so Arizona provides services based on need. You have to go through an assessment process, but if your loved one with a disability qualifies, they can get things like nursing, respite care, in-home therapies,
Right.
like the list goes on. Brooke, my daughter, has participated in this since she was a baby. And I'm so grateful, like very grateful. And the good news is in Arizona, it's not based on your income. Some states it's based on your income. And when you have a child like mine, she's $1 million a year medical care kid. Like we
Right.
do okay. We have private insurance, but if we didn't have her long-term care disability insurance, we would be broke. Like most families couldn't do it.
Right.
And so what you're referring to is there are services, attendant care, habilitation. Those are different in-home services that a caregiver would basically be trained and they'd come to the home to provide those. During COVID, there's always a provider shortage. This is another topic for another day, but it got even worse because people didn't want to go into people's homes. We're all
Right.
afraid of COVID. People don't want people in and out of their homes, all the germs, all these vulnerable people.
Totally.
And so to address that need, DDD thankfully approved the option for parents to be able to be certified to approve these services.
Yeah.
And for many parents who have kids with profound disabilities, having a normal job is hard. Like I'm
Right.
very lucky in the fact that I have great nurses. I have a great husband who supports me. And working is good for me. It's like therapy. I need to have that outlet.
Yeah.
For years I didn't do it, but for many families they don't have those opportunities, or they haven't put themselves out there to advocate and find connections and work.
Right.
So for them, not only did they not have a provider, they couldn't go to work, and so DDD saw this need, and these parents were held to the same standard. So like whether you're a parent or you're a non-parent provider, you had to go through the same onboarding process, the same training. You're treated like an employee.
Yeah.
So, society may say, oh, like you shouldn't be paying parents to take care of their own kids. But they don't realize what it's like day to day. I mean,
Right.
these jobs pay like $18, $19 an hour. You can't support a family on it.
Right.
So it's not a career that people stay in long term. So it's a constant revolving door trying to find people. And then these parents can't work a normal job if they don't have people to watch their kids with disabilities. So
Right.
it didn't solve the problem, but it helped, first of all, kids to get their services filled, which is the top priority. If your child's approved for services, they should have a provider. And whether they want to admit it or not, it helped people financially.
Yeah.
It just did. And so it was a great thing that they did. Now, the program isn't perfect. There are issues that need to be addressed, but it blessed a lot of families' lives. And so Brandy Kuhn, good friend of mine, amazing advocate and founder of Raising Voices Coalition, she's been really involved at the legislative level, just really making sure the parent voice is heard, that we have a seat at the table with, Access, Arizona's
Yeah.
health cost containment system, these big state agencies that are making these decisions, because unfortunately sometimes decisions are made without parent input, and that's
Sure.
not right, because if
Yeah.
you're not living that life, you have no idea what it's like. You have no idea what it's like to have a 24-hour care kid and have no one to help you. I've been through it for years and years and years. It is so hard. So while it doesn't solve the issue of fatigue and parent burnout and things like that, giving parents the option of being able to become providers and be paid to take care of their kids help their family.
Right.
And honestly, statistically, it reduced hospitalizations. You know, when kids are with their families, they're happier, healthier
Right.
when they're in the home. So there's a lot of benefits. You know, people got off food stamps. Like there's all these benefits that in the end, even financially, which is I know the government always wants to be fiscally conservative, there were those types of benefits. But not everybody sees it that way. And so there's
Yeah.
been a lot of pushback against it. Now, there was assessments just redone recently, which were devastating, severe cuts. And unfortunately, the parents that were involved in some of the work groups that helped provide input for the state agencies to create those assessments, unfortunately, their input was disregarded. And so it was published, and some of these cuts to kids services were so severe that, and it wasn't just for the parent provider, it was like your child's hours are cut no matter who does it. And so it created a problem because now the parent couldn't do those hours. So for example, say I had 30 hours a week. Okay, say I was working those as a parent provider. They didn't just cut the parent provider hours, they cut anyone's hours. So now I can't work those hours. Whoever I'm supposed to hire, I have nothing or
Right.
little hours, so then I can't even go work anyway because there's no one to watch my kid.
Right.
Thankfully,
Why would they do that? Is it just tone deafness at the top who...
I think so, and this is my opinion, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Disclaimer, I think it's about money.
Sure. Most things are.
Yeah, but that's my opinion. That's Brittany Miller, mom to
Sure.
a child with disabilities.
Money from where? Money like at the where the decisions are being made, feeling like we need more budget to go elsewhere, or money...
I mean, paying for this program is millions of dollars.
Sure.
So and I'm conservative, so
Yeah, yeah.
I believe that we should be fiscally responsible. But
Sure.
when our state representatives realized how much this program was costing, I think it was pretty shocking. And I don't know all the details, but I do know that before the parent program provider option was available, kids had services but went years without them being filled. So
Right.
the state was, to my understanding, was banking off of budgeting off of the services utilized, not the services approved.
I see.
And so during COVID, and again, Brandy would be more of an expert at this than me, but during COVID, all of a sudden these hours were being utilized and
I see.
the cost of the program skyrocketed. Now, I totally get it. Like, there needs to be reform. I'm not saying that it was run perfectly during COVID. In fact, it wasn't. So redoing the assessments and things isn't a bad thing, but the way they were done was really tone deaf for the parents.
Yeah.
And just so severe and without warning. I mean,
Right.
it was like you found out at the beginning of the month, 2 weeks later, your child's services and the majority of your income is gone.
So let me ask, what are they concerned? Is the concern, because just as an outsider who doesn't utilize those services at all, and I have a very limited understanding of what they are in general, to me they sound like kind of the perfect solution, because I would
Thank you.
assume assume that the services prior to allowing parents to be in-house kind of caretakers and being paid to do so, the services coming in, the caretakers coming in, while not all the time would be approved to come in and there would be a waiting list, like taxes and government were still paying those services to come in, were they not?
No.
Who was paying for that?
Well, okay, if I understand what you're saying. So, for example, like say, like my daughter has a lot of nursing hours, but I'm just going
Yeah.
to use a smaller. So, say she got 40 hours in nursing approved.
Yeah,
She has more than that, but just say that's what it was.
sure.
The state would approve those, but if there's no nurse to fill those hours, they're not paying for anything because there's no one
Oh.
utilizing there's no employee working
Right.
and billing those services.
But if there was
so-
someone coming,
they would.
then they would pay it. So the government's still paying somebody if they come, right?
Right, and so that's the argument many parents have. Well, does it matter if you're paying them? Why wouldn't you
Right.
pay me? But unfortunately, I don't think they really realized how rampant it was that so many kids were without providers.
I see.
So when all of a sudden, there's families that have gone years looking for a respite
Right.
care provider or nursing provider and didn't have one. And so, the parent provider option comes, and then the parent's like, well, I'm going to get certified and I'm going to work those 40 hours, multiply that by
Right.
families, and it's costing the state a lot more money,
Right.
which I get it. Like, it made our conservative representatives kind of freak out. Do you want me to stop?
No, you're
We good?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So, and again, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm a conservative. However, I also feel like it's important to really like listen to the families.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this is Brittany Miller's opinion. If we're looking to cut and save money, it shouldn't be regarding people with disabilities.
Right.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
Like there's other areas that we can look at. Now, doing the assessments for services, looking at them with a fair eye, making some adjustments because you have to. Your child has to be assessed, and then if they meet certain criteria, it depends on what they
Right.
qualify for. Like I totally get that, but the argument and the frustration for the many families who are in this position is, first of all, what else are we supposed to do? Like
Sure.
our kids deserve help. I'm a taxpayer. My kids should be able to qualify for services. But I think the frustration is when it's only about the money, it looks pretty heartless because no parent would choose this for their child. I mean, to
Right.
qualify for DDD, you have to have a extraordinary care kiddo. So somebody who's extremely
Right.
disabled that will never work, that will never be independent. This isn't their fault. And so, in my opinion, as a society, when we're looking to save money, it shouldn't be in relation to people with disabilities like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you'd think, because now, granted, obviously, sounds like the circumstances have to be fairly extreme to even qualify. But
They do.
you would assume, like, you look at the homelessness crisis we have in America. You look
It's
at
terrible too.
yeah, all those different things
Yeah.
where a lot of them do stem from mental health, from different disabilities, autism, the different disabilities that are
Schizophrenia.
schizophrenia, untreated circumstances, or maybe they don't have a parent support circle, they don't have any doctors, they don't have anyone helping them.
It's sad.
And we talk about wanting to solve those crises, those problems in America. You would think that putting it into this type of format and just better funding it would pull more people into a better support circle. Maybe a family that was struggling would go, okay, I can actually help my kid who's really having some problems. I can better support them, which then pulls them off the street or pulls them out of a bad crisis or a bad situation. So you'd think that would actually improve a lot of the other problems in that kind of arena. Now, is there concern that, once again, I don't know anything. Is there concern that people are abusing the system and so they're finding ways to get more money or something like that? Is that what the concern is? Or they're drumming up worse circumstances of their child than there really is so that they can qualify, and they're just being, is that the concern? They think there's abuse of the
let's be
system?
honest. Any government program, there's abuse.
Sure.
So that exists.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say the vast majority of parents are just trying to keep a roof over their kid's head and give them the best life possible. So yes, those people are out there, and like anything else, it ruins it for other people.
Right.
But that's a very small amount. Most families are just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And then when you have a child with such profound needs, you're already isolated. People don't understand you. It's hard to find people to care for your kid. I mean, there's a whole slew of problems. It affects the parent's mental health.
Right.
And I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit because it angers me because I have friends. I mean, this is my life. I mean, I'm lucky in the fact, I don't know if you call it lucky, but Brooke's needs are profound enough that like it's not questioned what she needs.
Sure.
Her services aren't going to be cut. She's also older. The older your child is, the less likely services are technically to be reduced, especially because, a neurotypical 16-year-old is driving independent, convey all the things about him, do independently almost as an adult can, where Brooke can't do anything for herself. So her needs are really apparent. But all that being said, again, like if we're looking to save money, I just don't know why does it have to come down to cutting people services who
Right.
can't help it? Like, this is nothing you can control. And again, Brittany Miller's opinion, but what does it say about us as a society if we're that heartless about it? I mean, Christian people, like, we want to take care of the most vulnerable. And so,
Right.
thankfully,
Yeah, you think there's a lot of other departments or programs that maybe could use some
there
some cutting versus ones for special needs.
yeah, and I have no idea what their budget.
Sure.
That's an area of focus that, of course, I would say that's probably true. But when it personally affects you, it's a lot easier to be passionate about it. And I think sometimes, someone outside of it, one of our legislators looking like, oh my gosh, paying all these parents all this money so they can take care of their own kid costs millions of dollars. But if they're only looking at it like that,
Right.
it's not right. It's tone deaf. It's so much more than that. And I mean, most of these parents could be doing something else, making way more money. There's people with master's degrees that are making $19 an hour to take care of their child because they have no one to take care of them and they had to leave their high-paying careers. So
Right.
this isn't what most people would choose, and so it's just a really hard situation. Now, I will say, leaving politics out of it, when this really aggressive assessment came out earlier this fall, it was really devastating. A lot of advocacy was done by Raising Voices Coalition,
Yeah.
and thankfully our governor put a pause on it and is making the state go back and relook at the assessment. So none of those cuts are happening right now. They're on pause.
Oh, cool.
I just worry what it'll look like once they review it. But reform needs to happen. But I really am hopeful and prayerful that our representatives will remember the people and not just look at the numbers.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's too much. I mean, it's tough, right? Because you get people in positions who have to make decisions, and they can't be experts in everything.
Right.
However, I do think, and I've never fully understood this when it comes to politics or any government position, is I feel like there's a lot of time spent on talking points and speaking certain things to get votes, which I mean makes sense. You have to get elected, you have to get pulled in, but not nearly as much time just sitting down and like discussing things with normal people and hearing, okay, what's your story? You may go to like I know politicians and things like that all host dinners where they go in the public eye and they shake a few hands, kiss a few babies, like do that type of thing. They give a speech maybe, but how much time is really being spent, sitting down one-on-one with the parents, with the families, with, the people that they actually serve and going, okay, let me hear out what's your life like, your experience, you don't see that very often. I don't know if it's out of lack of desire or if it's just, they have a job, which is to speak to a lot of constituents and a lot of people. And, that's kind of the game they're in. It probably is more that than anything else. But because, I don't know how you would, once again, I don't really know anything about it, but just in talking to you and Brandy and a few other people, to me, it's like when you look at the bigger picture, not just even like epilepsy or autism or one group, it's like it's a better system in general, allowing the families to take it back into the house, to take care of their child, to provide these services, and the money was going to get spent either way. Now, granted, if it wasn't being well distributed because of providers not being able to actually fulfill, like that doesn't solve the problem either. You just have now people not being serviced. You got people who aren't being well taken care of, which then leads to other problems down the road.
Yep.
So it seems like a better system that just needs, fine tuning here and there, whether that's more people checking in and making a personal touch to the assessment. Like, why not have like some of these providers that were coming in, why not have them actually go into the house and sit down and find out, like, okay, is there really a need here? Is there some...
But they do that.
Do they do that?
We have a support coordinator assigned that comes every quarter by the state that's required to assess the family. So
then where's
I think it's just... I'm not trying to be cynical, but I think it's about money.
Yeah.
But I will say that there are parents in Arizona that, I've been one of them, that have gone to the Capitol, that have been there to share our voice. So there isn't, they don't have to be experts in this, but there are people in the room that are. So they need to take the time to listen, which some do. Some of our politicians care about their community and are willing to. But it's a tough topic. And like you said, if you're not affected by it, like it's a lot easier to look at outside of it and be like, why is that why is that mom being paid full-time money to take care of her own kid?
Right.
It's a lot easier to look at it that and not understand like the realities that family faces. And like if they didn't have that option, There's no one to watch their child. They can't work. Now these families are getting off food stamps and able to pay their
Right.
bills. And it's like,
Which
I
is
don't know,
also better,
which is
frankly.
better for society. And so, I don't know. As you know, there's so many things politically that are going on, and there's so much contention. But I guess for me, at the end of the day, I'm like, shouldn't we just be good people and do the right thing?
Yeah,
You know?
I think if there's a system that empowers the families and then the adults, and because you're right, I think people get stuck on, oh, it's like, okay, this child has autism, or this child has epilepsy, or this child has, the special need. But it's like, yeah, except that special need now affects the parents, the siblings, like the whole family is also affected by it. It's not just the one individual, like everybody in that circle is also affected because they're trying to be a part. Well, hopefully they're trying to be a part and help and make it the best situation possible. So yeah, I think any system that empowers the group to feel like they can do more or they can better take care of or provide is better. Because like you said, if it's helping them get off of SNAP or food stamps or whatever it's called now, like that also benefits the system because now they're able to provide and work, and at least like, if they're on SNAP, they're now granted there's some new assessments coming into place for
Yeah,
SNAP too.
that's a whole nother
That's a whole nother
conversation.
thing. But at least if their time's being utilized to make money, to whether that's taking care of their kid and that's how they're making the money, to then be off SNAP so that they can pay for groceries and do things like, I think at least personally, I'd prefer them to do that than be just not doing like,
To be
than
homeless.
just to be homeless.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality for some people.
Right.
They
So
literally have nothing.
yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I mean, and you hear this with a lot of political issues, even immigration, like, the conversation of it's like, okay, is the immigration problem like letting people in? Is the immigration problem that we need to be better about the process of becoming a United States citizen? And usually the answer is somewhere in the middle, typically. But yeah, unfortunately, each side kind of gets politicized or gets, you know, kind of taken out into extremes on either end of the spectrum, and then you got one group that's like completely anti one side and another group that's completely anti the other side, and then the middle ground usually gets forgotten somewhere in between. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good program in general, outside of maybe some cleanup here and there. But so it's surprising that they're trying to cut it out.
Yeah, and I'll just say this lastly about the money part. It's
Yeah.
more expensive to institutionalize someone.
Right.
It's
Right.
cheaper to have them in their home. So would they rather have all these parents that can't take care of their kids have to make the devastating decision to put them in an institution because they no longer have support? So, yeah, it's
Well, and
it's really scary.
a lot of those institutions too, you know, I mean, maybe some people think that that's a better format. However, yeah. However, there's a lot of scamming that goes on in that same arena. I was talking to an individual who I think they had some family members who had to go to a home because they were above the age of 18, and or I think they were a little older than that too. And they sorry, just checking my headphones. And they were not just they had to send them into a home just because they needed a living situation, something that outside of the home they were in. And basically they were led into this, housing facility that obviously the government funds because they needed a place to put individuals who had special circumstances or special needs or whatever the case was. And I think this was for people who were, above the age of 18. So this is for adults.
It's more common for adults.
Yeah. And the home that they put him in had, I guess, all these rules that had to be followed. And one of the family members who was family to the person that was in the home, I guess, broke one of those rules. However, it was really very, very mild. Like, they drove into the parking lot to put some groceries down, and the rule was you weren't supposed to go in the facility. And they didn't even go in the facility. The parking lots weren't marked. Like, there was no instructions of these rules. And so this family member, just trying to be helpful because their family member couldn't go and pick up the groceries themselves, I think was the story. They basically broke the rules according to the facility, and the facility kicked them out the next day, even though they claimed that there was like a 3-strike policy or whatever the rules were. I guess the rules weren't well documented. But in digging into that further, like, come to find out, a lot of these homes and institutions, because they get paid off the individual, so the state will pay per individual in the home. So if they've got an apartment complex that they're housing adults of, let's say they got 30 apartments, 30 different rooms, they get paid per individual.
Yeah.
So if they have 25 people in a 30 apartment housing unit, they aren't making as much money if they have all 30 filled. However, they get paid per the individual. So if they fill out the paperwork, the person fills out the paperwork, they submit it to the state pays, but then they kick the person out and they now have an extra room to put another person in. The state will then pay them another however much for that new individual coming in. And so a lot of these institutions, they'll kind of scam the system by making up these rules and these policies, making it so they can kick people out quickly so that they collect the the funding for that individual. And so even those systems, like, they can be abused and mistreated and things like that.
Which is why I would never put my own child in a home.
Right.
Just personally.
Right, because
I know there's good people out there and there's people that truly care, but when you have someone that's vulnerable that can't defend themselves,
right,
there's a lot of sexual abuse. It's just, this is why home and community-based services are essential.
Right.
That's why we can't let that go.
And that's why you get a lot of homeless people as well. You know, they get kicked out of a facility or an institution or whatever. Maybe they're being abused, like you mentioned, and then they don't have anywhere to go, you know.
So sad.
And a lot of them, I'm sure, don't want to go back to being abused in those different circumstances. So, yeah, it's, from what I've heard from different people and from you, obviously, it sounds like a beneficial program that needs to be supported at the very least. So
yeah, and I would just say it's like not even beneficial. It's like it has to. It's essential. Like, we have to have a robust program to help people with disabilities. Arizona has always been top 1, top 2 state in the country. I really hope we don't lose that status by some of the decisions being made.
Yeah. Do you think, now granted, I don't want to get too political necessarily, because I know you know, with your career and position, you don't necessarily want to dive into that too hard. However, do you think that that's because you talked about how Arizona has been on kind of the forefront for special needs
for a long time.
And for a long time, we've generally been a pretty red state that over time is now transitioning to more being kind of purple. And we are a real, like, a border state. We border Mexico. We border a lot of different areas. So we're kind of a hot area for business, but also for a lot of different political things as well. Do you feel like the special needs is more supported by Democrats? Is it more of a in-between issue? Is it a more of a conservative issue? Where does that seem to land, and which side seems to be a little more supportive of it?
Well, I think most people have the perception that Republicans don't care about these types of programs, which is sad, because many people, like myself, who are Republican, want to take care of people that are vulnerable and be good Christians and do the right thing.
Right.
But I think, and again, like, I'm not the expert. From my perspective, though, it seems people that are Democrat are more focused on social programs.
Yeah.
Support for those. I just hope that we can find some common ground because, yeah, like you said, we've been a red state up until recently, and we had Division of Developmental Disabilities, Arizona Long-Term Care Services that were not perfect, but better than a lot of states for a long time before we were a purple state. So,
it's just a weird trend that it seems like.
I just think it's happening everywhere.
Okay.
It's happening. It's not just Arizona. But there's caregivers nationally that are appealing to our national leaders to provide reform. I mean, so many states are going through this. And I think COVID really, unveiled the need.
Yeah.
Because all these parents, not just Arizona, many states approved parent providers. And so all of a sudden, all these kids' services are being filled. And the states are realizing, oh, this is costing a lot more money. Before, we banked on the fact that people weren't using these because we knew there wasn't providers.
Yeah.
Which is kind of shady if you think about it. You know, banking on the fact that people will approve them, but we know they won't get those hours filled.
Right.
So it's not just Arizona, but yeah, I don't think it should be a political issue. I think it's like doing the right thing. I mean, but politics, unfortunately, are involved in it. But I will say there's this misconception that if you are more right-leaning that you don't care, and that's not true.
Yeah.
Many of my friends that are conservative feel like if, yes, we should be fiscally responsible, but taking care of the most vulnerable isn't an area that we should be cutting
Right.
unnecessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should be bipartisan. Like, just people should be taking care of people. Um,
And I just have to say, too, at the Epilepsy Foundation, politics doesn't rule what we do. We care about everyone. I don't
Right.
even think about it more in the community. And I even hesitate to say, you know, um, some of the ways I lean politically, which is sad, because unfortunately, how social media can be so demonizing and people are so
Right.
ugly behind a screen. But we should be able to express our beliefs respectfully and have those
Yeah.
dialogues with people that disagree with us. And I think most normal people want that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think social media and all those most platforms lead to a lot of division, kind of
Yes.
make topics divisive. But in reality, it's like when we sit down and we actually discuss things and we talk about some of our beliefs and where we stand on issues, more often than not, everyone seems to kind of find, oh, we've got a lot of things we kind of find in the middle and we agree
Yeah.
on, and the stuff we don't agree on is not as drastic as we thought. And so that's why I was curious, because I do agree. I think a lot of Republicans, conservatives, that people who lean that direction get a bad rap for being the unempathetic, non-supportive party when it comes to special needs or anything like that. And not saying that Democrats can't also be there. I think people in general have their opinions, but I do agree they tend to be seen as that kind of the party that doesn't care. But I think there's a lot of people who are Republicans, conservative, just like Democrats, who care about people with special needs and care about people in general. And so that's why I asked that. I'm curious about the mental health in this arena, because we've talked about clinics, facilities, funds. What's the mental health for the parents, for even those who have the special needs, who might be parents as well? What's it like? Is there a lot of services for their mental health, for their needs in that regard? Because you talk about how, as a parent dealing with a child with special needs, the stress, the pressure, the long nights, the long days, the hours, and obviously you're also running, you know, running the nonprofit and directing that as well. So, what are those resources like? Because we talked about early on the hospitals and how sometimes they work together, but communication could always be better. Is there a lot of cross between with therapies and mental health and things like that, or is it kind of like siloed, separate things, and people have to go search for it on their own?
I think mental health interventions need to be improved across the country.
Yeah.
But I'll share with what we do at the Epilepsy Foundation and just some resources I found that have helped me.
Yeah.
So the Epilepsy Foundation, we run support groups, and like I said, finding people who get your life is huge. And so we're constantly trying to find people early on in their journey and bring them in, because when you're more supported, you just handle your life better.
Yeah.
So we have an epilepsy empowerment group for adults. They've been meeting for a long time. Great facilitator. They're wonderful. We have an Arizona young adult support group. And we also have a parent and caregiver support group. Constantly advertising, growing. We want people to find their people.
Totally.
The Epilepsy Foundation nationally, also on a more somber side, has a really robust bereavement program. So if you lose someone to epilepsy, we have a support group. We have a team that provides services and help, because that's
Oh, that's
needed and a
cool.
reality of what we go through.
Yeah.
In Arizona, the Phoenix Children's in pediatric side, they have a great team that can provide support to families. I've even talked to a counselor there personally about, anticipatory grief, just having a child that we know we won't have forever. That's a hard reality sometimes. And so just
Yeah.
being able to talk with them. If I'm being honest, though, there isn't enough,
Sure.
and we need to do better. And I think too, a lot of these hospital systems have counselors, have groups they run, but sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you don't think about reaching out, or there's
Right.
a disconnect. Someone hands you a flyer from the Epilepsy Foundation that says, "Oh, join this support group." You may put it on your desk and not think about it for 2 years, because you're just grasping with the reality of your child's diagnosis. And so that's where, whatever the diagnosis is, most of the nonprofits that serve them really are actively trying to get people in and involved, because having a support system is huge.
Right.
But in regards to the disability services in our state and having a child who qualifies for those, there isn't mental health services included as a service through those programs.
Right.
So depends on your insurance, but like, Division of Developmental Disabilities, I know there's been work in this area, but I think it would be awesome if, my daughter Brooke qualifies for these services, and on her plan there's occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, nursing, therapy for mom and dad. I can't wait till that's a line item,
Right.
because I think parents need it.
Totally.
And a lot of people don't have the means to get it.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's there's obviously lots of resources out there, but are they getting into people's hands? Are they getting to the people who need them? I think that's always the question, right? Because and mental health and therapy is kind of a tough topic. I think people want to tough things out and they want to get through it, and and you're right. So like they may have a flyer on their desks for a thing that could really benefit them, but are they going to do anything about it? Maybe, maybe not. They probably would need somebody to reach back out to them going, hey, like, could you come to this? Could you do this? But how does that person know, like, that this person needed it, right?
Right.
So that is always the tricky part, it seems like, with, because it's a personal thing. Mental health is a very personal, subjective, perspective-driven thing. But yeah, I think if, and it probably touches on what we've been talking about the whole time, is it comes back to, being a part of a community that cares. And I know, like, in our church specifically, that's why, in theory, there's like the ministering program, right? The ability to have somebody who's constantly trying to just reach out and check in, because there's no way to fully monitor somebody else's life and know if they really need your help. But if they have someone who's touching base and going, hey, you good? You need help? No one. I don't think anyone's perfect at that, but yeah, I think in general that's kind of the concept.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's a problem everywhere. If you get a good social worker at the hospital, which they exist and they're wonderful, that really cares and takes the time to help the family get connected, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not all families get connected with them. So I hope that we can continue to do a better job to serve the community. Because like I said, our vision statement at the Epilepsy Foundation literally is this one line: so no one faces epilepsy alone. Because everything else you can handle better if you have people who understand you and you're not on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's such a across the board,
Yeah, we all need it, right?
Yeah.
We all need connection and help on our journeys.
Yeah. So big plans in works for the Epilepsy Foundation. What's kind of the future bring now that we're closing out 2025 in the next month or so and lean into 2026? I know you talked about when you first joined a couple years ago, some of the initiatives that you're like, okay, I really want to, and obviously your bosses as well wanting this, but wanting to help grow New Mexico, things like that. But what's kind of as director of the nonprofit, what's kind of the future hold 2026? What things are you excited for?
We're expanding into Tucson, which I'm glad. We have not done a great job the last few years in serving northern and southern Arizona, so we're going to do better. And so I'm really excited that we have some events on the calendar. We're going to do a walk in the fall. We're doing a conference and a doctor dinner earlier 2026, partnering with U of A, which will be great. And I think it's important. I just recently completed our calendar for both states for 2026, and we're just out there. The more things we have, the more people we can bring in. So really excited about doing those things and providing more support to the community. We're just growing and growing. New Mexico, same thing. We're doing our first Epilepsy Education Day at the University of New Mexico. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have topics and classes for families to take on all kinds of things: mental health and epilepsy, surgical options in epilepsy, navigating a new diagnosis, diet and lifestyle in epilepsy, just all kinds of topics, free for the community. Just, keep doing what we're doing and expanding the work to all parts of the state. I am excited. We have two more fun things for 2025. So this Saturday we are going to, as you know, because you're coming with me, the Arizona State University football game against West Virginia. ASU is graciously making it an epilepsy awareness game. Marcus Ball, former ASU athlete and amazing epilepsy advocate, has secured tickets for a bunch of our family. So that'll be a fun, just feel good day.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this, buy tickets and wear purple,
Yeah.
because we're going to be spreading some epilepsy awareness. And then something really cool nationally as well that we're doing. Should I stop?
It wasn't recording when you were saying these.
Oh, it's okay.
So you may want to re-say it.
I mean, it's recording on the audio, so you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this, kind of a neat opportunity once in a lifetime. So, Epilepsy Foundation of America was chosen to ring the bell at Wall Street at the stock market. So apparently, this is new to me,
Wow.
but at the closing of every day,
Yeah.
they ring a bell that the market's closed. And so
Yeah.
Epilepsy Foundation of America was chosen to be the nonprofit to do that.
Oh, that's cool.
So our CEO, this is really cool, is amazing, and she provided the opportunity for staff, if they're able to fly out to New York City and get to be there. And so it's a little crazy. Hopefully the airline situation improves in the next 2 weeks. But the Monday through Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we get to go to New York City and be there for the ringing of the bell. We're gonna have a special reception, and then just gonna sneak in some New York City holiday fun
Yeah.
and sightseeing while we're there. So it is really neat to work for a nonprofit who provides these opportunities that we would never have otherwise. I mean, it's pretty awesome, and it'll feel good to finish out the year being with my colleagues, reflecting all the hard work that we've done,
Yeah.
and then, have a break, enjoy our families, and get to work. So we have a lot to do
Yeah.
in 2026.
Yeah.
So
Eat a hot dog, take a picture next to the Statue of Liberty.
I don't know about eating a hot dog. I'm gonna eat.
I
don't know.
It's the one time
I
I
have
went
a
to
food
New.
list of places I'm supposed.
That's true. There are better.
Yeah.
There are definitely better places than the hot dog. But I did go. The one time I went to New York, I did get some food truck food. It was pretty good.
I bet it
Like the
is.
street vendors or whatever they're called.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we ate a lot on that trip, so I don't know if like maybe if I got any food poisoning from it, I wouldn't have known which item it was from. So maybe there's some danger there, but it sounds like a lot of people eat it. So
Well, I
okay, so
bet
maybe
it's great.
maybe no hot dogs. Maybe.
No, I am gonna try I want to have a bagel. They're like famous for the bagels.
Okay, there you go.
I have a list of restaurants, but really, I want to see as much as I can because I've never been to New York City. So we're gonna focus on the Epilepsy Foundation and the neat opportunity there, and have the special reception, but sneaking in a few
Yeah.
things. And I am excited on a more serious note. On the last day, a couple of my colleagues, we're gonna go to the 9/11 Museum and
that's cool.
Memorial. I really want to see that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool one. They've got the big holes in the ground and stuff. And
I just feel like I need to see it in my lifetime.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The back east is so different than over like west
I know.
side of the country. It's weird. The few times I've been over there, it's like you would think it wouldn't be that different than like Arizona, California, like the West Coast, but it's like drastically different.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, anything else? Any other exciting things coming up, or did we miss anything?
I don't know. I mean, we have a lot going on in 2026. We have a walk in February. We have a doctor dinner in Tucson. We have an educational conference at Phoenix Children's. We will have our camps this year. I mean, more to come, so hopefully you'll have me on again.
Yes.
But really just thank you for this opportunity. And it's just really nice, too, to be able to share about the work we're doing during Epilepsy Awareness Month, which is every November. And just happy that I'm here and then I get to serve a community I love and I'm part of. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, glad to have you on. You're always welcome. It's the rite of passage as being a family member. So
He
you're
has to have me on. I'm his mother-in-law.
Yeah,
so.
anytime. Where can people go if they want to donate? Just the Epilepsy website?
So epilepsy.com/Arizona, or you can connect them with me. I can share that website with you if you want to put link in your show notes. But we appreciate the support. We're a nonprofit, so the work we do goes back into the community. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at B and then Miller@efa.org.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, we'll link that down below. But Brittany, always a pleasure. You're always welcome, and we'll get this episode out before the end of November, so
Sweet.
people can
Okay.
tune in. Anyways, thanks everybody. Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.